Kia ora tēnā koutou. My name is Shane Clarke. I am the General Manager here at Nuralite, so the professional MC, amateur GM here at Nuralite. For those of you who don't know, Nuralite's been synonymous with flat roofing, waterproofing for about the last 50 years here in New Zealand. So we specialise in flat roofing, waterproofing for roofs, obviously, and below ground. So yeah, welcome to our 24th webinar in our series, Online Education. I'd like to introduce my panellist here, Lewis Olding.
Good morning.
He's our product manager for Nurajacks. And today we're just going to pick back and forth a bit of a topic around design solutions and considerations for multi-purpose roof areas. We also want to provide some, I guess, inspiration and some confidence around what you can do with your roof. Not to be too shy about what you can do with your roof, make use of these spaces and do it in a good way. You've got a good outcome for everybody. So this webinar is NZIA accredited. So for those of you who are NZIA members, there'll be a form at the end of it. We can check your registration in. All our past webinars are also accredited with NZIA. They're all available on our website. Our webinar layout, if you like, is we speak for about 20 minutes. We'll touch on this topic. We're going to touch on 3 points, basically, just considerations around making use of this roof space. And then we've got about 10 minutes towards the end for the Q&A. So, Lewis, I think we do a charity as well. So you're going to introduce our charity?
It's our charity is Movember this year. So because I can't grow a mow, that's why we've got cutouts.
Me neither.
And yeah, so we're really proud to be supporting Movember this year. So $10 from every attendee will be sent off to Movember to help with that wonderful cause.
Yeah, so thanks for attending, everybody. You already made the world a better place. Good on you. Thanks very much. Right, so we want to make this as interactive as possible. Otherwise, you get to sit looking at our talking heads for half an hour. So we'll try and make it a bit interactive. So the QA function is live. So if you've got any questions, pop them in, and towards the end there, we'll try and get around a few. So that will be the last 10 minutes of the webinar. So to help warm up those fingers on the keyboard, we're going to run a poll. So the first poll this morning is basically how many Nuralite webinars have you already seen out of our series? So I'll leave that run for a minute or so.
How many have you seen?
I think I posted all but 1 and 2.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. For you, sorry. All right. Thank you, Jade. Excellent. All right. Well, let's kick into it. Let's talk about roofs and when they're no longer a roof.
Yeah, when is a roof not a roof?
Yeah,
it's a good question. If we go to that first slide there, Jay, thank you. So a roof is not a roof really when it's a multi-purpose surface.
Yes.
So when we're talking about decks, a trafficable surface, well, that's generally a deck. A roof turns into a deck, doesn't it?
Yep.
When we talk about green roofs, we want to say aesthetically pleasing or have some other elements to it. Well, that's another option.
Yep.
The roofs now are becoming functional surfaces for other things like solar panels, and so that involves complications around fixings and things like that. We're going to cover off just some of the challenges on each one of these types of roofs, and it's going to be pretty rapid fire, but try and get to some design principles in your mind for when you're designing these sorts of spaces.
Yeah. So overall, these is probably some really big topics. This is really just a quick brush through, and like I said, just to basically let you know that there are solutions for your wonderful design ideas. And where to get those ideas from. So our next slide there. Right, so I guess first and foremost, the roof has a purpose, doesn't it?
Yeah, the roof has the purpose of protecting the building under it.
Yeah, a lot of people forget about it. We sometimes call it the fifth facade or the forgotten wall.
So the waterproofing or the membrane or the actual roof is the most important consideration.
Yeah.
So that's where we need to start in the design process, is actually start from the roof up. And because historically there have been challenges around trafficable surface on roofs. When we think of the leaky home syndrome, glued down tiled decks was a big thing, and that caused a whole lot of dramas. Poor selection of waterproofing membrane and detailing. Even today, detailing is still one of the critical things that must be considered in any design.
Yeah, and I think when it comes back to that detailing, if you can liaise with your chosen membrane supplier, they're probably the first port of call that's going to give you the best advice. Unfortunately, we have seen errors like adhering tiles directly to membranes. terrible detailing, nailing through membranes to hold, literally that happens. So let's not do that. There are much better solutions.
Yeah, so the question is, how do we protect the membrane or protect the roof?
Yeah.
So we're going to touch on the first one that we want to highlight really is if it's a trafficable roof, we need to consider using pedestals because that's becomes the standard for protecting roofs for a trafficable surface. So when we think of a pedestal like the Nurajack, it's important that they can handle the load that you're going to apply to them. So the Nurajack, for example, can handle 1,000 kgs each, and it distributes that load over the waterproof membrane, so much so that we guarantee not to damage the waterproof membrane. The head's self-level. Okay, so that means that if the waterproofing has a fall, which they all do, the head will find its own level, guaranteeing that the full surface of the membrane of the jack is supporting over that membrane to spread the load across the membrane. There's other features that we can go into in the Nurajack, and there's other webinars actually about it. Another thing though around that is actually the accessories that are available within the system, because with any system, whether it's a timber deck or a tile deck, they all require accessories. So having the availability, but also a range of accessories is important
to complete the whole system.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So what I particularly like about this the jack is that it allows the water to flow out, and that's what we're seeing here in this detail.
Yeah. So just going back into that detailing again, making sure quality detailing in your drawings is very important from an installer's point of view or the constructor's point of view. They need to know how the system is going to work when it's being built, obviously. So this detail is just one example of good detailing. It's showing a scupper or running to an outlet. And you can see that the scupper is actually being recessed or rebaited into the substrate. And there's multiple layers of membrane in that area. That sort of detailing is critical for it to be successful.
Yeah, we want to get that water off the roof, right? And what I do want to point out on that particular detail I quite like is the code mark logo here. Makes life a lot easier, that's for sure. Okay, and go to the next slide.
So we're going to move on because we are short on time on this one, and we said it would be rapid fire. Green roofs are another option on as a multi-use surface, right? And so what's going on here, Shane? What's with this project in particular? Yeah,
so I mean, with the green roof, obviously, first and foremost, it provides a wonderful aesthetic. That looks fantastic. It helps create biodiversity. It supports plant life and bug life and bee life. So it's really good for the ecology. The other benefit of a green roof, of course, we're just running over the surface of this, is the fact that it retains stormwater. So it's sort of noted that a green roof will retain about 80% of the stormwater. So they've only got about 20% of that water running to waste.
Does that mean, so when thinking of it from a design point of view, you need to actually start considering the structural integrity of the building because the added weight that's going to build up on a green roof? Yeah, so I guess an extensive green roof could add sort of up to 500 to 600 kilos because you've got to obviously calculate the saturated weight per square meter. So what we want to point out in this particular build up is the Nuralite green roof drainage mat. So what we're seeing here in this image is it's a 25 mil deep grid, if you like. Not quite an eggshell because it's square. I haven't seen square eggs, but the idea is behind this little reservoir fills up with water, and that acts as a irrigation system for the green roof above. And then what happens is if it continues to rain, and that water will then overflow right onto the membrane, and then the membrane will do what it does. So what size are these and where they fit in the build-up?
Oh yeah, good point. Just flick back one slide, Jake. So yeah, basically the Nuramat green drain sits in between the growing medium. We don't call it dirt. It's between the growing medium and the membrane. The membrane itself is a particular specification for green roofs. It has an anti-root inhibitor built into it, just to promote, again, just the longevity. One of the other advantages of having a loose laid drainage mat like this is if for some reason you need to maintain the roof area, you can actually pick it up, move it around, and put it back again. Yeah, and so from a membrane point of view, what membrane would be on this job? Yeah, so sorry, this would be Nuralite 3PG. And I think there's one other little advantage from a membrane supplier's perspective that we like about these ballasted or green roofs, these covered roofs, is the fact that the membrane will never see the light of day. Therefore, it's protected from the UV, giving you a lot longer lifespan. Yeah. So quite like that idea. Yeah, and they also got that root inhibitor in there, isn't it? So it's
it stops the roots potentially damaging the membrane over time.
That's right. Yeah.
So again, just really stressing, thinking about these things well ahead of time and getting your waterproofing supplier involved to be able to detail properly and then get the right products installed will make the job run a lot smoother and be more successful, of course.
Yeah.
Another option to green roofs is a planter box, and we see this a lot more when it's multi-use.
Yep.
And there's some key advantages with a planter box to consider. We do get asked quite a bit, or do we integrate the planter box into the waterproofing, into the structure of the building and that sort of thing? Well, because the Nurajacks can handle 1,000 kg each, it's actually quite good to be able to put the planter boxes on Nurajacks. And like we have in the detailed drawing here to the left, we see that the Nurajacks are just supporting a concrete planter box. So that enables the membrane still to be accessible if necessary, and the air and water to flow around the whole system. And the amount of Nurajacks that you would use in that scenario is depending on the load that you want to carry and distribute. So have a look at the calculations, get in touch with us if you need assistance in making a decision.
I guess the other advantage of using these planter box type scenarios is that, like I said earlier, the green roof is quite a lot of weight. I mean, if we're using a planter box scenario, we may be able to center these planter box over structure to take the weight. Also provides flexibility should the tenancy change and they might decide they want to put a tennis court up there or something.
Or move, if a new tenant comes in, they can move the planter box. We've even seen planter boxes actually on caster wheels on top of floated tile decks, and then they just move them around depending on what the building occupier wants. So another consideration actually in these sorts of things is with regards to what happens when the wind blows. So just personal experience, lived in an apartment on the 10th floor, and we had a wicked, like almost cyclone blow through, and the top of our table blew off and smashed against our glass doors, sliding doors. So wind uplift happens on buildings, right? It's a known fact. The higher you build, the more chances that's going to happen. So what considerations do we have around tying things down, holding things down? It's such a critical part.
So we put all these things on the roof. That's great, and we want to make them stay there, right?
That's it. That's it. So there's been a bit of talk in the industry about tiles. If we're doing floated tiles, what's the need for these sorts of things? Well, in New Zealand, the chances of this happening is actually quite low. However, an engineer this is where an engineer needs to make that decision.
Sure.
And so we have a solution which is the Nurajack windproof. It can hold tiles down to the tops of the jacks using these clip system. And that will withstand about a 2.1 kPa uplift, and which is more than enough for the majority of New Zealand situations.
I mean, we are starting to see these 1 in 100 year events happening every 10 years now. So good to have a solution to hold it all together.
So the point is, again, and this is what we're really stressing within this webinar, is thinking about these things in the design stages protects later in the construction stage with these last minute decisions to try and overcome some of these challenges. So knowing about these products being available will help them.
And give you confidence to actually use that flat space.
What if you've got a timber deck or another sort of product that you need to tie down? What would you use?
Yeah, sure. Just flick to the next slide. What we're looking at there is the Nuralite fixing plate. Now, this is a structural fixing plate. I'll show you in the next slide. Sorry, Jake, go back to my bad. Go back to the previous one. So yeah, it's a structural fixing plate and it's factory assembled. So basically the membrane skirt, if you like, is installed in the factory. The plate's then taken to site, it's then installed. This will give us a wind uplift rating per plate of about 5 kPa, depending on what fixings we're fixing into. So if we need higher than that, obviously we use more plates. Also has a loading of around 5 kPa as well. So it's not uncommon to see these used in conjunction with Nurajacks. So they're at the timber deck, for example, on top of a rooftop where basically there's one of these in each corner, and they're using the Nurajacks to resist the downward load. And they're using these to resist the uplift load and keep it all in place. So these are all part of the Nuralite system, as you like. So we see a 3D render on the next slide.
The simplicity of waterproofing, and that's a key consideration. Is anytime you've got a junction or a penetration through the roofing structure, addressing the waterproofing, how that works around that is critical. And it's complicated sometimes. And so having a factory system makes
also very quick to install. I mean, in the good old bad days, this here replaces the 4x2 screwed down to the membrane, and then relying on an applicator to dress around it with two layers of membrane, which is quite slow and tedious. The other thing with this fixing plate as well, if you can see those blue flanges there, allows us to use them in the warm root build-up, eliminating potential thermal bridging. So all part of that system.
There's a whole we could talk forever on that product alone, eh? And so when you've got things like solar arrays, which, as we all know, are getting very popular, we even want to have them on our roof here at work, don't we? You've got to charge your solar car.
Yes, electric car
with a solar car. So again, it's thinking ahead of time how this is going to affect the rooftop area and wind load and the penetrations, those sorts of things. And that's where, like we have the illustration on the left-hand side there, we have all those roof
fixing plates
there holding the rails down, which then have the solar panels on.
Yeah, I particularly like this example by seeing architects. It's in Piha, so a very, very windy area. Those of you who know the area, very windy, and this building was actually retrofitted, so on a warm roof. So it just shows the scope in which we can use these roof spaces.
Yeah, very good.
All right. Okay. To some projects now. We're going. We're about 2. Where are we? A couple of minutes to go on this, and we'll run into the Q&A. We've sort of run through some projects now, basically, and give you some inspiration. And
when we raised this idea of this webinar, we thought it'd be great to talk about it, and then we realized how deep the dive would have to do into it. And so looking at some existing projects helps us to sort of see the potential of those roof areas. So this is that Grace Apartments that we've already seen one of the illustrations there. It's a multi-story building with the rooftop. It's a beautiful an area where all the tenants can use.
Just like a shared space.
Just a shared space. Right. And you can see that it's actually sitting on a outdoor composite deck, which is supported by Nurajacks. And then we have these screen roof element to it as well. But as we go down the building, the next slide, we've got here the balconies around the perimeter. Now, they were all just pavers directly on Nurajacks. That's the most common design for your standard balconies. There's no window behind a balustrade like that, very little wind uplift, very little chance of those sorts of things. So our standard detailing was used around there.
Okay, so just the standard detailing, because this building is in Union Street, in the CBD, up the top of the ridge there, so it's quite a high wind zone.
Extremely high wind zone. Standard 20mm tiles on Nurajacks were actually fine.
Okay, got another project here, Front Street.
Yeah, so Front Street Apartments. It's a beautiful podium area on top of I think it's a 2nd-story area there. Large area of and if we go to the next slide, actually, Jay, we see a massive area there where such a communal communal area, and it's got this beautiful all of it supported on Nurajacks. Got beautiful pavers that were supplied by Horizon International. Contracts to the install work on this job. And all the precast and prefab elements were provided by Horizon International as well. It's such a beautiful space there, well designed by the architects and landscapers.
Yeah, I think this is a really good example of a mixed use space. So basically, they've used every single element there, and turned what would be a rather average looking podium area into something a bit more usable.
Yeah, it's definitely very beautiful. And we have the Esplanade House.
All right. So this was a residential house in Christchurch, I believe, where they've used, you probably can't see in the zoom away, the pull away photo, but those solar panels there are fixed and held down with the Nuralite fixing plates there.
Also had some beautiful timber deck areas, all supported. And so something to note there's a sparkle sitting on that timber deck. So Nurajacks, because they can handle a ton of weight each, you can use them to support sparkles, whether it's over a membrane deck or even just over a bit of concrete to level it up. And all you do in that area to protect the membrane. So again, thinking about, it's all about protecting the roof, is increasing the quantities of Nurajacks to be able to distribute that load, because on a sparkle, it's quite dynamic. Water moves when people move, that sort of thing. So just increasing the quantity of Nurajacks in that area to protect the membrane.
Right. Yeah. Okay, and again, like any water that spills over the side is going to wash away and run away. Yeah, no, it's great. this is a really interesting example. This is definitely not like the school I went to. This is a school down in Christchurch. No. Yeah, this is a school in Christchurch where they've utilised the flat roof space as part of the play area. Great example of using that extra space. The school's on a relatively small site anyway, so you can't quite see it in this image, but there is a bit of a playground, and you can see the slide there that I don't fit down.
No, we actually have a full webinar just on this project. So if you go back through either our YouTube channel or our website, nuralite.co.nz, go to our webinars, you'll see a deep dive into this project with Andrew Barry, and the inspiration where it came from Japanese design and architecture, where he worked for a long time. So it's a really interesting webinar. It's worth looking into. So if you want a deep dive into how this was achieved, look at that. It's a 30-minute webinar.
Yeah, nice. All right, we're 22 minutes in and we're getting to the good bit.
Right, Rooftop Bars. It's a place we probably all like to spend a bit of time. What a great way to have a multi-purpose roof, right? Just put a bar on it.
Yeah.
And so Nuralite and Nurajacks have been involved in many of the rooftop bars around the city.
We'd like to share the experience with
absolutely, absolutely. And so because this is possibly our last webinar of the year, we thought, well, for all of those that have joined us today, we're going to just draw a random name out of all those that are here to be able to have a $150 spend at one of our rooftop bars, QT bar in the viaduct. So
Jade's going to pull a name out of the hat.
Jade?
Okay, yep, so the winner is Patrice Terrell.
Patrice Terrell.
Excellent, well done.
Thank you,
We'll be in touch, and
we've got your email address. We're going to send you a voucher. Well done. Thanks for joining us for our 23rd webinar, 24th webinar. Yeah. And possibly the last one for this year.
Yeah, so look, thanks again for your time. Hopefully we've given you a bit of confidence around putting things on your roof, whether it be, really nice aesthetic green roofs or simply plant gear to actually handle the building. So hopefully we've highlighted some securities there for you. So I'm going to run through a couple of questions now. I've got a few come in, so by all means send some more and we'll get through what we can. What we can't get through, we'll actually send out in a recording of the webinar along with a Word document with all the questions. So I've got the first one here. Are the Nurajacks recyclable?
Yes, they are recyclable. They're polypropylene and construction. But what's probably interesting about them is that they're made from 100% post-consumer recycled product.
So they're recycled before they're used.
Absolutely.
Right.
So they actually come from recycled product, and that's made 200 kilometers from the factory. So we sort of know the whole build-up of their
Okay. Sorry, just one thing I forgot to add earlier is that there's a lot more information available in our flat roof design guide. You can see that there. So we're going to drop that into the chat there. You can download that if you like. So this is the volume 2. So you may think you've already got one. We've updated it. Volume 2. Volume 2 sort of covers a bit more of this, what we talked about, and covers warm roofs. So right. Oh, can I put a spa pool on Nurajacks? We've kind of already touched on that. Yep. Yes, we can is the answer. The green roof mat, is it trappable for maintenance? Yes, it is. The green roof mat has a compressor strength of around about 180 kPa, so you can walk on it. Not for regular traffic, but for maintenance traffic, i.e. weeding, irrigation, maintenance, things like that, it would be fine for that.
Downstream system. So
okay.
Yeah. So with regards to the next question, is the roof mat for green roofs storing tubes with the intention to reduce stormwater on the downstream system? That was the question.
Right.
Basically, it acts as a main. I'd be right in saying the main reason for it is to actually offer some extra feeding to the plants.
Yep.
But the actual whole buildup in the system does slow that water transference down. So what happens is as the water sits in that system, it can evaporate back out again, or it just slows down that transmission into the stormwater system. Yep. So as stormwater systems get older, of course, we know in Auckland here, they tend to flood under heavy rain events. So a green roof can slow that down so that then it comes back into the water, into the stormwater system over a longer period of time, minimizing those events. So is that the right answer?
Yeah, that's right. Yep. And there's actually some really clever people out there when it comes to green roofs who can actually calculate your specific green roof and what the
Yeah.
stormwater retention
Yeah.
component is, because they need to do that to actually calculate the saturated weight.
And so follow-up questions just come through on that. Does it count as stormwater detention? You just have to talk to, contact us and we can talk you through that. Yeah,
It can do. Yep, there's calculations for saturated weight. So yes, it can. And we can give you some figures to throw into to the calculator for that. Question about the Nurajacks here, Lewis.
smaller
space.
I don't know if you can see that, but on the base of a Nurajack are some cut lines. And the cut lines can bring the base down to around about 120 millimeters. So that means we can put the smallest cut tile that we can put on a Nurajack is around about 150 millimeters. So we can get those bases really cut like that.
Okay, cool. I'm just going to run a quick poll. Second poll, we'll throw that up there. Look, if you're just working on a project right now and you'd like someone to contact you, can jump in and vote there. Sorry, just going through the questions here. Right, just got one last question here. How long do Nurajacks last?
Oh, they're recyclable. We
Right.
warrant them for 20 years,
Okay.
but they'll last a lot longer, of course. So
Yes.
yeah, you tend to find that what's on top of them gets replaced before the jacks do. So
Yeah. They last a lot longer than the, the 4x2s that we used to use in the bed old days.
Yeah, but the whole system's warranted for at least 20 years.
Right. All right, we're just going to finish up with our third final poll, which is your chance to give us some feedback on future topics, actually. What's hot, what's not. We know what we know. You tell us what's of concern to you, and then we'll put it into our education series next year. So pull that out for us. It would be fantastic.
Yeah, that information is really useful for us to do deep dives rather than these overview type webinars.
Okay. Awesome. Well, yeah, that concludes our 30 minutes. Thanks very much again for your attendance, making the world a better place for the people at Movember. We'll put those donations through on your behalf. Hopefully we've given you some inspiration and some confidence around designing multi-purpose roof areas. There's definitely a way to do it. Don't be sort of restricted by your imagination.
Yeah.
Definitely a way to do it.
And reach out to the people that know.
Yeah.
Whether here at Nuralite or wherever, just reach out to people that know to help start with the design process first, and then so they can be implemented successfully.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Thanks again, folks. Ka kite anō.